Hello and welcome back to another episode of Booked or Busted. You know the rules. Every home service company out there needs to be ready when that phone call comes in, or shoot, not just the phone call, the text, the email, the web form, the online booking. You better be ready. You better be ready to get that call booked and absolutely knock that customer's socks off. So today I have a very special guest. I'm excited about a very cool episode for you. We always try to bring you some new content because the reality is when it comes to being booked or busted, it's not just the phone call. It's not just that inbound experience. It all starts with that customer journey. And a big part of this in creating a great customer experience before that phone even rings, before that customer comes inbound, well, it starts with your branding. And you want to be branded, not blanded. So I got Dan in the house today. He is my special guest. So Dan, I want to introduce you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Me and Dan are going to be doing a pretty cool episode today. Probably won't be making a phone call, but we are going to audit a company's branding, and we're going to talk about how that impacts your business. So going to be some great stuff. So Dan, happy to have you. Tell the listeners a little bit about what you got going on.
Sure. Thanks, Corey. Yeah, this is actually our 31st year for KickCharge. I started the company in 1995, working in my basement, and I've been doing, building brands for home service contractors almost 41 years. I started when I was 15 years old and hand lettered my first service truck in my backyard for a plumbing company. And it's been quite a journey. So 41 years later, I still get excited when I see our work out in the space. Obviously, I've got out of the basement and we have a 60-person agency right now. So we do full service brand development, and then we do digital marketing as well, email, social media, SEO, LSA, PPC, like all that stuff as well. So have a pretty incredible team, and we get to build brands that change people's lives. And I can't think of a better way to spend our days, and super grateful just to be as passionate today as I was when I was so much younger. So it's been a remarkable journey. Grateful to the trades for everything that's done for me and my family and my team.
Absolutely. Awesome, Dan. Well, again, excited to have you here. Going to be a good episode. So we are going to be checking out a company's branding, and Dan's going to drop some gold on why this is important, some of the things that you want to think about. Because again, you know me, I'm always talking about that customer experience and what happens when they reach out. But we're talking about what happens before that, right? And this has got to be dialed in, and it makes such a difference for your business. So I'm going to go on and share my screen here, and we are going to dive into this. So a couple things. We're going to check out a company. Dan, I just pulled up this image. Can you see that?
Yes.
Well, before we get into the company we're going to audit, what do you think about stuff like this? Is this helping them, hurting them?
Yeah. So, listen, this image and this idea has been floating around for probably 3 decades. I could recall it back in the 80s. And the idea of something generating a lot of eyeballs is part of what we think about when we're building brands. The idea of disruption is a good part of what branding should do. And how do you live in someone's mind rent free is the other piece of it. But the reality is you could also make your truck, pink with purple polka dots. And people would say that they see the van all the time, but does it deliver the expectation or the promise of what I would expect or hope to get if I hired them? So this type of imagery is good for sort of the shock value of seeing and saying, oh my God, that's so cool. That's so different.
Right.
But do I think I'm getting a premium service if I hire them? Do I expect that they're going to come prepared and have the right tools, the right team, et cetera? And that's where this type of imagery falls short, right? So gets the attention, but doesn't deliver the promise associated with the deliverable. And I think when you think about branding, everything that brand should be doing is having the consumer believe something about your company before they actually have the opportunity to call. Like you said earlier, controlling that impression before it happens.
Mhm.
I can have the consumer believe that the experience they would get if they hired you is going to be first class, right? And then the CSR picks up the call and they deliver on that promise. They have such a great phone disposition and they book the call. Now your technician arrives at the home. All these touches are having that consumer believe this experience is going to be great, right? And then
Yeah.
when they think about how do we raise average tickets, how do we close the job, all those things that go along with it. Well, if the brand is doing the lift that it should be doing, they already feel there's a reason maybe why they should hire you, maybe why they should pay a premium to you, um,
Mm.
and why you're different than the competitors. So brand does a lot of that lifting again before you ever answer the phone, before they hit your website. Brand should be communicating all those different aspects of positivity that we want about your company.
I've seen some really good brands, and I'm like, man, this company looks great. And then you call them, and their contact center does not match
Mhm.
the brand,
Right.
right? So I think it can go both ways. And then I've seen some with really horrible brands, but then you call and it's a great experience on the phone, And so just imagine a company when you got both of those pieces working together.
Absolutely.
Uh, yeah. So that's
And
awesome stuff.
And to that point, Corey, too, I think the people that we tend to do a lot of work for are people that actually do have their systems dialed in. They have great CSRs.
Mhm.
They have a great customer experience, but none of those things are actually being communicated by the brand itself before those things happen. So you face this uphill battle where now you have to having to sort of prove how good you really are instead of having
Yeah.
the brand actually represent how good you are. So there's kind of a disconnect between what the experience actually is and then what the brand says the experience might be. But if I can get those things in sync, if I can get it to match how awesome of a service you provide with a visual that makes me believe that before I even call, then I have a much higher likelihood of booking that call, closing that sale, and getting paid a higher average ticket.
Absolutely. 100% agree. All right. Well, let's dive in. So we just did HVAC company in Philly. And the first thing that popped up here is HVAC Philly. So let's just start here, Dan, and we can kind of click into the photos.
Yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, if you could click on that one photo, let's just take a look at what that truck looks like. So yeah, again, you think about the name itself, which is challenging because the name itself is using vernacular that not every home consumer actually understands. So that would
Yeah.
first thing to me would be a challenge with the name because maybe I don't know what HVAC means. Maybe I think it's related to something on a more commercial basis. But if I'm doing residential work, well, then it feels like a company that maybe isn't catering to me. You also have the challenge with the logo using very common colors that are common within the industry. And thus, if they're common, they're less disruptive. So using the
Mm.
traditional red and blue lettering and red and blue logo not something likely that I will see and like, "Oh my god, like, I've seen this over and over again because it's so unique." It's sorta like, "Oh, no, this kinda blends in with so many other companies that use red, white, and blue for HVAC companies," and
Mhm.
it feels very functional, but what I would say is it feels also remarkable, unremarkable. So, when we think about brands, we're also thinking about how do I live in someone's mind rent free, right? You just had Mike on the other day from Good Golly Garages, right?
Right.
And you see that brand, and if I saw that parked on my neighbor's driveway, I would think, "Oh my god, that's really cool, that's really unique, that's really different," and I would file
Hmm.
my brain. Maybe I don't need a garage service that day, but I might need it in a month or 2 months or 6 months, and I'd be like, "What was that cool van that was parked next door? It had that really interesting name, it had those cool visuals. Oh yeah, Good Golly," right? So, like,
Yeah.
thinking about that, but why would I recall this later on or 6 months from now? What is remarkable about it that would register in my mind as something I should file this and think and connect with it on a deeper level. And it's not, like I said, 100% it's functional. It's
Hmm.
unremarkable. And again, white vans, we call that white van syndrome. Very, very challenging to have that be disruptive because there are so many white vans out in the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What do you think about, because part of this is, um, real quick, when it comes to I don't know if you have any data around this, but with your van driving around, you have these vehicles driving around the city every day.
Mhm.
What is the average, I guess, it'd be interesting to see. I don't have any numbers in front of me, but how many people actually call the company off of the van? Do you think it's important to have a phone number on there? Because I've heard some people say, "Oh, you don't need the phone number on there; just put the website." What's your take on that?
Yeah, well, first off, dollar for dollar, there isn't
Hmm.
a single medium out there that isn't even remotely close to the cost effectiveness of truck wraps. So your
Hmm.
cost per 1,000 impressions on a truck are pennies in comparison to any other medium where you're going to be spending so much more for those same amount of eyeballs on your actual
Wow.
brand. So by far the most cost effective advertising medium available to a contractor. Now, as far as the idea of should you have a phone number on there? Or should you not have a phone number on there? Listen, at this point, we're probably only 25% of our wrap designs even include a phone number, mainly
Okay.
because the website is more important. And
Hmm.
secondly, it's not typically how someone actually would contact you,
Hmm.
meaning that they're unlikely to remember a random 10 digits and then go
Hmm.
on their phone and then type in those 10 digits again to get you. They would much more likely, especially if you have a great name, simply go in Google and just Google your name and then click the call now from that particular search. So yeah, we definitely have direct correlation and direct traffic that you can attribute to the trucks. And certainly the CSRs can help in that regard when they answer the call. How did you hear about us? And making sure we're diligent in tracking where those. But well-branded trucks are certainly a huge part of the marketing mix when they're done correctly. Sadly, most are not done correctly or just not optimized to their potential, and mainly
To
because the
convert.
brand itself is not optimized for that particular medium.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, and I mean, unless you're like one of those injury attorneys that have those really easy numbers like 8888888, then maybe you'll have a little more success with the phone number.
Yeah.
Uh, you always see those guys. They got the easiest numbers to remember
But
on
even
their
those,
billboards.
even like the phone numbers that actually spell something,
Yeah.
think about the logistics of those. Like, to me,
Oh yeah.
they're more of a pain in the ass
Oh
than
sure.
numbers, because now I gotta figure out, okay, 1-800-lawyers. Well, the L is what is that? That's a 5,
Right.
and then the A is a 1, and you know what I mean? So
Um,
you actually make it more of a
especially the
pain. Yeah.
younger generation. Forget
Yeah.
about it. Forget about it.
So,
That's true.
yeah.
What's your take on, so you got companies that have been around 40, 50, 60 years or more,
Mhm.
well-known established brands, but they're still rocking the same branding they did 50 years ago.
Mhm.
What do you say to those guys, or how do you play that when you got a well-known brand, but it's really not up to par with today's standards? What's your angle on that?
Yeah, and I think it goes back to the question that I always say to owners is asking them whether or not that the brand they have today actually represents the level of service they provide today, or does it represent what you used to be or where
Mm,
you came from 5 years, 10 years, 50 years ago? And
yeah,
typically the answer is no, but there's a lot of ego involved, 100%. There's a lot of
yeah,
security that owners have and what is quote unquote working, why would I ever change, right? So there's that kind of mindset. But, I use examples like the rebranding we did for Tommy Mello at A1 Garage. I mean, Tommy was at 30 million in revenue when he rebranded with us. And I think it was 5 years later, they were at 300 million in revenue. But he knew when he was at 30 that the brand that they had did not represent who they had become, and more importantly, where they wanted to go in the future. And I think that that's the other really important piece is what you have now actually representing what you provide on a daily basis, or does it represent where you came from and what you used to do? And I think that sometimes taking an honest and hard look at your brand to determine whether or not it is actually communicating the promise that you want it to is the question that you need to be asking yourself. And I think that,
Yeah.
again, I would say that the companies that we do the most work for are those companies that do have a great service, a great reputation, a great experience that they provide. But if I were to judge by what I see on their website, on their trucks, on the guys' uniforms, on the direct mail piece I get, on their social media, I can't get there. You know,
Yeah.
they either feel neutral or they feel negative. And then everything that happens after is an obstacle that the CSR has to overcome, that the technician has to overcome, or that the salesman has to overcome when he's in there. So imagine working from that disadvantage when you have a brand that's like an anchor that you're dragging around and you
Yeah, that's true.
and I'm sure, Corey, you've worked with companies that have amazing brands, and
Mm-hmm.
you've worked with companies that have marginal brands or weak brands. And when I wrote the second edition of my book, I spent so much time looking at the data to see the differences that branding was having in the consumer behavior and how it was affecting the KPIs that we care about most. How did it affect booking rates? How did it affect close rates, average tickets? All those metrics matter so much. And again, so many guys get that part wrong because the brand doesn't help those processes. It actually hinders those processes.
Yeah, that makes sense. What I want to do is I'm actually gonna because this is our company that we're doing the main audit on here. So before we end the episode, we always score, right? We're doing a phone call, we'll score it. So I'm gonna have you give a score for this company on a scale of 1 to 10. We're gonna review them a little bit more, dive into a few more photos. But 1 to 10, you think about it like ice skating. You very rarely give a 10 because
Mhm.
what if you've seen something better, right? So you drop it wherever you want to scale. We'll do that here soon. I want to look at a couple other companies that I think will provide some value here and run some different scenarios. Before I do that, though, I just want to point out, looks like we got some heavy AI stuff going on here. I mean, totally on consistent branding.
Mhm.
You got this photo like this, and then you go over
Yeah.
here, same guy, but his shirt changes, his hat changes,
Yeah.
and that was 2 months ago, and this was a week ago. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they
Maybe it's a fake company at that point. That's the question sometimes you have to wonder too. If everything's AI, is it even a real company? Which is one of the reasons why we don't recommend you use AI ads, AI
right.
visuals like this, because then the consumer is left wondering, is this even a real company? So don't use
Yeah.
fake
This is
AI
total AI.
people in your G&B profile. That's a huge mistake. And it definitely is not giving that sense of confidence or honesty or trustworthiness.
Now check this out. This looks like an old photo here. But you
That
see the
looks
old
legit.
HVAC Philly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like an old historic photo or something there.
Yeah.
Like the original owner. You see the old. Now that's a real
From
rough
5
old.
years ago. So maybe that's a real
Well, it was
photo. And then,
posted 5 years ago, but that photo
yeah,
looks a lot older than 5 years. I don't know
yeah,
what
it
kind of.
does.
I can't see what kind of refrigerant they're using. That would be a good indication how old that photo is. But yeah, yeah, a lot of AI stuff going on here. It looks like that's the most consistent branding there with that logo. Oh, look, there's an actual truck. So there you go.
That looks legit. Yeah.
Yep, yep. So there you go. All right. Well, before we talk more about this company, just along the lines we're talking about, so I want to pull up a company that's very well known, a very high level company, um, and that's Hiller.
Hmm.
Okay, so we look at Hiller.
Yeah.
I don't know their revenue. I know they were trained by Jim Abrams, so that's
Yeah.
my background. That's who my dad was originally trained by, his first employee.
Yeah.
So he follows that Jim Abrams model. Obviously, super successful company here. But let's talk about this branding and kind of what you see here and do they keep it? Do they change it? What would be your recommendation? Or maybe you've already given your recommendation to them.
Yeah, we actually just did a brand for another company that they have with Jimmy
Okay.
Hiller. But the idea is on this is I love the idea of the smiley face. I believe they
Hmm.
actually have a federal trademark on that actual symbol, which is
My
great.
dad used to use it back in the 90s. He started
Okay.
a company here in Palm Coast, Florida called Classic Heating and Air, and it
Okay.
was a smiley face. I don't know what year Jimmy started. This was in 95. He started this business.
Yeah. So what I would
Yeah.
say is like this is very functional. I really hate that the vans are white, right? So that
Yeah.
I just feel like the impact is missing. And what I
Hmm.
would probably do differently is I would lean more heavily on the actual smile because
Okay.
that's the emotive characteristic that I want the consumer to connect with. Like when
Yeah.
we're done, that's how you will feel. You will have a smile on your face. So there's great promise in this particular idea. I just think the execution could be done in a manner that leverages it more. What he has going for him that's working really well is it's extremely legible from a distance. I know exactly
Hmm.
the name of the company. I can see the lines of copy underneath that say, I think it says plumbing, heating, cooling underneath it.
Yep.
Although half that lettering goes through the door handle, so maybe we wouldn't want to fix that. So and then the other graphics underneath, like how low it says happy you'll be, and I don't know the rest of it, what's behind.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
when
that's their slogan. I don't know if it's listed on here somewhere else, but yeah, happy you'll something like that. I
yeah,
forget. I
so
forget how it goes.
I optically you never want that much information that low to the ground because
Okay.
it's discounted. So I would have that higher up somewhere and maybe make the phone number and the website slightly smaller because I think again it's very easy to remember that name. He's got hundreds of vans in there, so I don't think people will have any trouble trying to locate them. But
Hmm.
the smile is what I would focus on as a much more larger dominant element. I love
Yep.
the tagline exhibiting the promise of what that visual stands for, and I would just make the color um not be white as the background. I would go with a full color on this.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's happy you'll be something guarantee.
Okay.
The happy you'll be the guarantee, something like that. Can't see the full thing there, but um,
Yeah,
in slogans, is that something with the branding? Do you help create slogans too
we
if a company
do.
doesn't have one? Okay, how
Yeah,
important is
absolutely.
that?
It's important because again, I want the promise to be reinforced with the tagline. So in this case, yeah, his tagline is happy you'll be guarantee, right?
Hmm.
So that tells me as a consumer, if I'm thinking about hiring them, that's sort of my comfort that I'll get because I'm going to be happy or they'll give me my money back perhaps or something like that, right? So you're
Yeah.
reinforcing the visual, which is the smiley face,
Yep.
back into the actual tagline. So when you make those connections, it also helps people remember the brand name more so. So yeah, we do usually a few hundred taglines for the brands we create every year. And definitely it also helps anchor the story of what this company stands for and what they believe in.
Awesome. Awesome. I was trying to find a clear picture of that full guarantee there. We're close. We're close to what it
Well, I
says.
see it right above your mouse on the top where it's in the actual navigation. It says happy you'll be guarantee. So I guess that's it.
Okay. Happy you'll be guarantee. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Happy you'll be guarantee. There you go. I love it. I love it. And I like their website, Happy Hiller. Real clean. I did notice one thing that we just talked about, the phone number with the letters.
Hmm.
844 my Hiller.
Yeah.
So there's that, it's cool, but is it effective? I
Right.
don't know. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Okay, very good. Anything else on this one? Because I got another one.
No, like I said, a great foundation. I feel like it is a little bit dated at this point, and the next evolution of this, I think, could really be so much more impactful.
Yep. All right. So I got Horizon Services, another super successful
Mhm.
company,
Yeah.
lots of locations. I've actually called their call center, so I know they're dialed in the call center. I've actually, I got it's sad but true. Most companies I call, I can't give a high score to. They were one of the few that I was able to give a really high score to. So I got to give kudos to them there.
Awesome.
In their call center, they're doing a very good job.
Yeah.
Um, so how are we looking here with the trucks, with the branding?
Yeah. So huge company outside of
Find a
Philly.
better picture.
see their trucks all the time. This is one of those companies where many years ago, especially companies that were in some of the best practices organizations, as they added additional services, because I believe Horizon originally started just as HVAC, and then they added plumbing, and then they added electric. Um,
Hmm.
the mindset became that as you add services, you should change the name of your company from Horizon Heating, Cooling, Air Conditioning, or Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electric,
Yeah.
to services or home services. So when you look at this van right now, and you could see it there on the right-hand side,
Mhm.
you see that the actual brand says Horizon Services. And I want you to think about this from this perspective. Imagine you're on an elevator with someone and you work for Horizon Services, and they say, "Hey, who do you work for?" And you say, "I work for Horizon Services." What do you think the next question they might ask you would be?
What do you do?
What do you do?
Like, what's that
What do you
mean?
do? Right?
Yeah.
So you can see right away why that might actually be problematic, right? So
Yep.
so because the brand itself does not say anything at all about what we do, now
Hmm.
we have to list all those things somewhere else. Right? So you have to
Yep.
have plumbing, heating, air conditioning, drain cleaning, those other things. So the idea that the logo itself does not actually say what we do is a problem. Of course, they're huge. They've overcome it. They probably need to spend maybe more than they might if the brand actually communicated more succinctly what they actually did. The other issue is if you look at the logo, and you look at the lettering. So the main lettering for this brand is orange, and then it
Hmm.
uses a dark or medium blue outline with a shadow. If you were in graphic design school 101 as a freshman, you would
Hmm.
understand why we don't use outlines that have higher contrast than the lettering that it is actually outlining. So when
Okay.
you look at this in low light scenarios, and you could look at it even on the screen right now, you could see that the lettering for Horizon, especially the R, if you look at the inner part of the R, it kind of all blends together and it's muddy. And that's because you should
Yep.
never actually use a dark blue outline with orange lettering, because the tonal values of them, this is getting technical, but the tonal values, if you converted this to grayscale, they would almost be equal. And when they're equal, it simply means that they clash, right? So it gets very muddy. So from a very basic graphic design 101 theory type of thing, that is something that if they simply either eliminated the dark blue outline and shadow on this, the words Horizon
Hmm.
would become so much more legible. Or if they had a solid background behind the lettering for Horizon and made the lettering for Horizon white, you would also have more contrast. So again, strictly from a functional perspective, there's issues in the way in which the actual logo and the lockup of the logo is designed.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Awesome. Awesome. All right. Let's take a look, Dan, before we wrap up and we're going to score that company we originally picked. I just want to grab one of the companies that you've branded.
Yep.
Obviously, we know Tommy Mello. Most of our listeners have seen his branding. Amazing. Lots of great things there. One that's standing out to me. What's the name of this company here? Can you see it?
The bottom left,
Yeah.
Vector.
Vector. Can we
Yeah.
look at Vector?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Love
Let's
Vector.
take a look. Vector Home Services. That's Vector Security. Here we go.
Yeah, that's him. Yep.
Okay, here we go. So let's talk about Vector. Uh, cool name, different, and this branding is a little bit different than what you might see on normal trucks. So let's walk us through this a little bit.
Sure, absolutely. And this is a good example of a for trade company that does not use home services as its clarifier. What we call the clarifier is what lives underneath the brand name. So we do spell out heating, cooling, plumbing, and electrical, which covers everything
Hmm.
that they do. And
Yep.
this particular company had a diverse mix of clients. They had some commercial clients and they had some residential clients. So we wanted to make sure that the brand would speak to both audiences and be
Yeah.
memorable to both. We picked colors that in their market no one else was using. So we knew we could own those particular brand colors, which is another part of the research that goes into every brand that we create. And we wanted the brand to just feel very premium and very high end. And the
Right.
numbers that we have in the book, Corey, there's a case study on some of their successes as far as what has happened since rebranding. I think they added 8 million in revenue since rebranding, I think 2 or 2.5 years ago. And
Wow.
average tickets, I think almost doubled since rebranding as well.
Wow.
And just so much more confidence that these salespeople have when presenting estimates, when showing up, or and if you looked at their original truck wrap, it was like one of those white vans. Like it was literally a white van. It just said Vector, and that's literally all it said, and it was completely unremarkable. And now
Mhm.
they really have shown up. There's so much more visible in the community that they're serving, and so many people know this brand name now, and it's working so well for them.
Wow, just those numbers that you just stated. I mean, there's the proof right there.
Yeah.
That is phenomenal. Awesome. Yeah, it's a cool color. It's a little bit like just a little bit different to me. It just stands out. I
Mhm.
like that yellow, that blue, and the logo. Tell me about that logo a little bit. What are we doing there with that? What is it representing? I mean, obviously the V. Um,
Yeah,
what's the idea behind it?
we wanted to create a mark that was unique to them, that they
Hmm.
could own. We wanted to also not use a mascot because it doesn't work as well for some of the commercial markets that they were serving. And we
Gotcha.
wanted it to just feel really high end. That you could see that there's like some shading in that symbol. There's some transparencies in that symbol. And we wanted to show sort of the movement that goes along with moving heating and air and plumbing. So there was, some backstory to the visuals and what it represents. And even the way we did the graphics on the van, the flowing aspect of the striping elements and the color blocking that we used. Again,
Yeah.
we're trying to make it so that when this van is coming towards you or I see it drive by in the highway, the combination of those 3 particular colors, the dark navy blue, the yellow, and then that process blue, that we're the only company you think about when you see those colors together. Again, you go back to what we said earlier about having a red, white, and blue brand colors. Well, I can't own red, white, and blue. No one
Yeah.
can really own red, white, and blue. But
Hmm.
put these 3 colors together in this given market, no one is using those colors in the home service space together, and so we knew we can own them. So that's the other part of the psychology behind how do you live in someone's mind? Well, again, picking things that make people remember them and recall them is a big part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I got one more. I actually want to look at one of my clients because I think it's a cool branding. It's interesting. The colors. I want to get your take on it, and then we can go back to our original company. Um, Tell me about the psychology behind colors. What colors you choose, why you choose certain colors, why to stay away from different colors.
Yeah. I mean, for us, a lot of times color decisions are made based on market conditions.
Okay.
And I know that that sometimes runs a little contrary to color theory. Certain
Hmm.
colors do have people feel different things sometimes.
Hmm.
But I think for us, we're always just trying to think about what colors can we own while still communicating that promise that we talked about. Colors that we typically avoid, I will say this, is we typically avoid black. Well,
Okay.
why do we
It's
avoid?
funny 'cause
Because some people are like, well, black's such a premium color. Like black feels premium and high end and things like that. Well, we avoid black typically again because it's not a color that feels very comforting to people, right? So it's very masculine in nature, and we also know statistically speaking that 84% of the people making home purchase decisions are originating from women. So we want the brand to speak to her. We want the brand to make her feel comfortable with who she's choosing to have come into her home, and black is typically not a great color to do that. Have we done colors with brands with black? Yeah, we have. We've done a few of them. We've done few actually with our own brand colors, but it's typically something that doesn't connect as well with women.
Gotcha. So this is one of my clients, and they're awesome, and they are crushing it in the call center. I'm actually in my last month with them. We've really gotten things dialed in and seeing some great results. Um, have not, touched their branding. So that's
Mhm.
why I wanted to pull them up. They did recently, over I don't know how long ago, but they recently made the owner here the mascot, and then they got the dog with the plumbing, and
Okay.
so they use that in commercials. As you see the dog here in the photos, they do videos, they do commercials with the dog in it.
Okay.
But let's talk through this. I mean, we got a lot of black here, very dark. We got the white van. So what are you seeing here?
So, a lot of challenges here, right?
Hmm.
So part of the challenge is the name itself. So
Yep.
initial based brand names are the absolute hardest for people to remember. So
Yeah.
G&C Plumbing and Heating, why would I remember G&C? I would remember Good
Yeah.
Golly way more than I would ever remember G&C. And
Right.
G&C holds no promise to me. Meaning if I
Hmm.
knew no other context, but someone said G&C Plumbing and Heating, what would I think I would get? Well, I wouldn't really think anything because I don't have any promise that's inferred from it. Um, so typical challenge with having a brand name that is initial based or even sometimes last name brands have the same challenge. The other challenge here is from a legibility perspective, right? If you were to take this exact photo and put this photo into Photoshop or something where you can convert it to grayscale,
Hmm.
again, you've got a black letter,
Hmm.
actually a red letter with a black outline. So two very high contrast letters are now competing against one another and they are blending together, really making it less legible, right? So you never actually want to shade or outline red with black on a white background because all it does is it blends it together and it makes it so heavy. If that outline for GNC was actually 10% gray or light gray, the GNC would actually come forward into the foreground and I would
Mm.
be able to read it so much easier than I can right now, right?
Yeah.
Challenges with legibility here, that I think from an illustration perspective, um, and this is gonna sound terrible, but
Hmm.
I feel like the illustration is not rendered in a professional manner. And as
Okay.
such, then I look at it and then I wonder if the service will be at a similar level. So this is the
Okay.
challenge sometimes when you see mascot-based branding where the mascots are not rendered in a manner that exhibits the characteristics that you want the mascot to evoke, right? Or
Yep.
have it feel. So even looking at the way he's rendered, the smile for him, the way his thumbs up are, his posing, the way his leg sits, the dog
Yep.
itself, right? So these are all little details and nuances that communicate subconsciously to the viewer something that they think they might get. So I think, the idea behind having him as a mascot and maybe him with a dog, I think there's some value in that, and I think
Yeah.
that they're onto something with that. But how does that tie together with the deliverable? Is there a tagline that references why we have a dog? Do we say something like "doggone great service" or something like that?
Yeah.
So, like, there's a little bit of a disconnect between the why we have him and a dog, the
Hmm.
brand name itself, and the lack of story around his inclusion. Like, he's not mentioned the dog isn't mentioned anywhere on the website. He's not
Right.
integrated into the rest of the strategy or the rest of the deliverable. He's in the front picture, so I see him there, like, I get it there. But if we want to make him the hero of the story, then let's make him the hero of the story, and let's
Yeah.
tell a story around it. So,
And I wonder
yeah,
why this little dog gets left out. I bet she's pretty
yeah,
upset.
yeah. So, and again, too, white background here, you could see all the vans lined up there,
Yep.
all white, again, coming towards me down the road. Why am I gonna turn my head to look at them? I'm probably not because it's just another white van in a sea of hundreds of white vans that I see every day.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Um, Yeah, no, that's some solid stuff there. And look, like I said, I like the mascot too, but I agree with you, and that's an interesting point you brought up on the quality of the design, and a lot of times on the quality of our designs, like you said, sometimes the customer looks at that and they say, "Is that the quality of service I'm going to get?" Just subconsciously,
Yep.
those things happen, and that's why branding is so important. Uh, I'm sure your imagination is running wild when you look at this, what you could do
Mhm.
with this and where you could go with this. But to give the viewers kind of an example of a better example of a mascot, we could go to A1 Garage Doors, right?
Yeah.
And if we look at this now, just kind of briefly talk about this in comparison to what we just looked at. Similar thing, right? We got
Yeah,
the name and we
right.
got the mascot, right?
But look at the posing.
Yep.
Look at how he's rendered from even an illustrative perspective with the shading, right? So he looks
Yep.
dimensional. It looks like he has some character. The left and right shades add highlight, add depth, and he looks very confident and he looks very competent, right?
Hmm.
But if you compare the other illustration, we don't really get that. We don't have the same emotive feeling that we get
Yeah.
in that particular instance. It feels flat. It feels like the proportions of the body are not well done. Like his legs, even like the pants look sloppy because they're not form fitting. It's very awkward, the actual anatomy, the way it's rendered
Hmm.
currently. So
Yeah.
yeah, and the idea I think is solid. Just the execution of it is something that I think could be done better.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And
Good
look at the
stuff.
legibility here as well too, right? So we talk about legibility. If you took this same exact design and you put
Because you got
photograph,
A1, that's a very
yeah,
kind of
and
not a great name, really. you know?
it uses initials, but at least A1, and instinctively for people they assign a promise to A1. They think,
Sure.
oh, A1 number one, like it's good. But if you made this in black and white, the legibility for A1 Garage would not be significantly impacted. But if you took the other one and you converted it to black and white, you will have that muddiness with that particular name that makes it that much harder to read. They tried to solve it by having that white outline around the red, but you
Hmm.
shouldn't need to have that white outline to try to have that come into the foreground. Like it's sitting too recessed right now because it's too heavy and there's too much competing for attention at the same exact time.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Well, that is great stuff, Dan. I think we've given the viewers lots of gold here, lots of things to think about, and lots of reasons to call you to get to get rebranded. Learning about the importance, and I mean, at the end of the day, it's about the ROI, right? What is this? What is this bringing back to us? And of course, branding. You could probably spend hours talking about this. It's not just that immediate. Um, we talked about a vector and you dropped some hard numbers there. Like we seen, what was it, Dan? You said the average tickets go up.
Yeah.
We seen
Yeah.
sales go up. I mean, right after that, that's hard data. This stuff works, but beyond that, there's just so much value that having a great brand adds to your company.
Yeah.
So to wrap up this episode, unless there's anything else you'd like to check out today, Dan, anything else you'd like to review before we give the score?
I think the other thing too that you just mentioned earlier too is outside of those KPIs like booking rate, close rates, average
Hmm.
tickets, revenue, you have the effect of the brand on the digital marketing. And that's something that I talk a lot about in the book is how does it affect the performance of your digital marketing campaigns? And that's where a lot of people get really upset with their digital marketing companies and are like, "Hey, we need better leads," or you're not getting us enough leads." And
Yeah.
when you see the people hitting the website but not converting on the website, sometimes that's fundamentally a brand issue because the folks that are hitting the website have either never heard of you, and if they've never heard of you, your chance of conversion are much lower. And secondly, if it's not a company that looks from the presentation that I know, like, and trust, that will also negatively impact your digital marketing efforts. So again, I think sometimes everyone wants to blame the digital marketing company. And Corey, on your side, like you could prove out that we sent 100 phone calls to the call center and we only booked 20 of them. Well, that's not a digital marketing problem. That's
Right.
a CSR problem, right? So that's going to be a
Hmm.
painfully obvious example, but don't underestimate how important the foundation is for the rest of your marketing. And if you don't have the right foundation, you're just going to need to spend more on marketing. It's not rocket science. The weaker
Yeah.
the brand, the more money you need to spend to market it. Like that's the way it works. So look at the fundamentals sometimes and make sure that the foundation is worth improving.
Absolutely. That is gold. Great stuff. Okay. Well, the time has come. It's time to give the branded score. That's what we're going to give on this episode. We're going to give one score. and that is on how this company is branded. So scale of 1 to 10. Dan, the floor is yours. We are grading HVAC Philly.
Yeah, I'm gonna say 4, 4.5.
All right.
It's got a naming issue. The good thing is I can read it. I know the name of the company, but it's unremarkable in pretty much every other aspect.
Yep. I hear you. So let's go with a 4. That was the first thing out of your mouth. So they're going to get a 4. And just to give you an idea on my scale, let me pull it up here. So a 4 is, in my skills, called busted booking, which
Okay.
I think is fair. Look, at least they got a logo. At
Yeah.
least they got a phone number. If this was to be a call that we are grading, when they fall into the 4, that means, Dan, they booked the call, but it just wasn't great, right? It was
Yeah.
messy. Back end was weak. They did failed to inspire me or really inspire trust or build value. And I think that's what this branding says, right? Hey, it's not a 1, it's not a 0. They got a logo, they got vans, they got some stuff going on, they got some shirts printed, but there's a lot of room for improvement that could really take this brand to the next level. All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching another episode of Booked or Busted. And thanks again, Dan, for being with us. If you're interested in getting your company rebranded, great book here. Recommend that you can. Where can they buy this book, Dan?
They could grab it on Amazon or they could get it on kickcharge.com as well.
Gotcha.
And it's also if you go on Amazon, you could get the audio version as well.
Gotcha. So Dan will be tagged wherever this video is. We'll have his contact information available. Get it done. It's going to make a big difference for your business. Well, Dan, any last words before we close out?
Yeah, Corey, I mean, listen, not everyone can be a Kick Charge client for whatever
Mhm.
reason. Maybe it's just not the right time. But if you have a brand or a truck and you want some feedback on it, I'm happy to give you some tips or maybe some ways on the next time you get it done, you could make it better. So if you ever want to hit me up, just hit me up on Facebook or dan@kickcharge.com. Happy to take a look at it. I don't pitch people or do anything like that. I just feel like everyone deserves the best chance of success. That's why I wrote the book. Like, you don't make any money writing books. Believe me, I'm not getting rich writing books. But if I can help another contractor do better the next time with their branding, just by giving them some small tips on how to improve the layout, I'm happy to do so. So hit me up, and if I can help, I'd love to.
Awesome. Thanks again, Dan. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time on another episode of Booked or Busted.
Thanks, Corey.